Okay, if I try and justify every single time that I go forever without finishing something that I commit to long before it actually gets finished, these videos are going to be fucking 2 hours long, which, granted, may be wonderful, because apparently, I guess some people like my videos, which is cool. I'm happy about that. But I look like shit right now, so you're actually not going to see this face for the rest of the video. This entire thing is just not going to happen. I got a big ass zit and shit, like, not going to happen. All I'm going to say is that we're just going to talk about these movies that I watched that were part of the Criterion Challenge back in 2021. Yeah, and it's already 2023 in like a few days, so fuck. I'll explain maybe whether on as to took why this took forever, but it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that we're here to talk about these movies. I've got 13 left in this whole challenge, and I have ow. I have an announcement at the end of the video as to future projects, because I'm gonna start getting back into this. I know I've said that before, and who knows, maybe I'm lying. I don't know, I'll only find out in the next month or two, so yeah. I'm just getting slowly back into this. Man, my hair looks awful, but yeah, I'm just here to talk about those movies, so cue the thing. This is the first film I've seen from Louise Buñuel, and as a starting point, it really delivered. Its concept alone separates it from most comedies I have seen. The film is about a bunch of rich people trying to have a dinner party, but something keeps getting in the way, whether it be real or imaginary. It also takes some time to explore the ideals and goals of the upper class. Stuff like their prejudices and their morals, for example. The characters here are definitely not meant to be likable, and it added to the watchability for me. The acting is all solid, and each character feels distinct. There are hilarious quirks to each character that'll probably add appreciation upon multiple viewings. They were all bastards, and the dialogue they're given is ridiculous and hilarious. The moments not meant to be taken literally really made for great humor. The stage scene in particular comes to mind. It's clearly trying to be part surrealist with its humor as well. There are lots of outrageous story beats, and some scenes feel pretty stupid, but it all feels self-aware. It has a simple but effective way of communicating its humor. I also appreciate that the film tries to have some genuinely intelligent commentary into upper-class corruption and moral bankruptcy. Keyword, tries. These moments feel as if they hijack the movie a little bit. The self-awareness found in the humor just disappears during these moments. The dialogue feels very on the nose, and it makes these parts stick out like a sore thumb. And as much as I like that the film has these non-literal sequences, they, in their own way, also hijack the film. Most of them are stuck in the second half of the film, and it makes the structure feel very uneven. There's also a solid 15 to 20 minutes where I just didn't really understand what the film was going for. It also didn't help that the second half was kind of repetitive. Although, the final dream sequence was genuinely one of the funniest scenes in the entire film for me. This is one of those films where the humor really carries itself through its more uninvesting scenes. It was a hilarious black comedy that I found thoroughly entertaining. It worked much better as a comedy than it did as an intelligent commentary, though. It's outrageous, it's weird, it's ridiculous, and it's an entertaining oddball of upper-class black comedy. So I'm just gonna give this a 7 out of 10, and let's move on to the next one. This is definitely one of the coldest movies I saw out of the entire challenge, both emotionally and in some ways literally. This is my first Jean-Pierre Melville film, with my first being Le Samouraï, a film that I myself didn't connect to very much, but I still respected it a lot. I'm gonna give that film another shot in the future because Army of Shadows was pretty fantastic. The tension in this film is incredibly nerve-splitting. The stakes constantly raising creates incredibly intense and watchable drama. It's rather bleak in tone and emotionally brutal. There are excellent twists that are very satisfying throughout the film that keep it from ever feeling stagnant. The build-ups in this film are slow, but it is purposeful, and there isn't a single payoff that I didn't find immensely satisfying. The main character is incredibly watchable, and his intelligence makes him feel like a real person making reasonable decisions. I also love that the other characters get some time in the spotlight too, and their development doesn't feel overlooked. All the performances were great and the emotion didn't feel forced. The film as a whole is incredibly intense and thrilling. The beach escape sequence was great, and the parachute jump sequence was definitely my favorite. There's a great handful of scenes that I can remember incredibly well, even though I've seen it once over a year ago. It also helps that the film looks great visually. The cinematography is very professional, and I loved the music. The sets and costumes really sold the time period. I do have a couple of complaints, however. First off, the film's opening, all things considered, should not have been what it was. Mostly because there was another scene 15 or so minutes into the film that would have worked so much better. It perfectly set the tone for the rest of the film, it was intense and very well crafted. It just made the sequence before it seem much less impactful as an opening by comparison. There are also some unconvincing fire effects. I also felt a bit mixed on the makeup. There are moments that are incredibly convincing, but there are also a couple moments where it looked like paper mache and coloring. Despite these hang-ups, this film was awesome. It was a fantastic anti-war film about the French Resistance. I will absolutely be seeing it again, and I will be buying the Criterion Blu-ray someday. I'll be giving this one an 8 out of 10, but it's a very strong 8. It could likely change to a 9 someday. Over the past year or two, I've been a little conflicted on who my favorite director is. And even though the spot is a partial three-way tie shared with Kubrick and Tarkovsky, I think my favorite would definitely have to be Akira Kurosawa. This film is purely an accessible, fun, action-packed adventure story. And considering he made it after Rashomon, that's a pretty impressive feat. There's so much character to the story and drama and action and even characters themselves. The best character in the film is absolutely the General, played by Toshiro Mifune. I loved Mifune's performance, and his presence in this role is enough to capture my attention. He would later master this bravado for the Yojimbo movies later in his career. I also love that he could play a dumb goof whenever he wants, a la Kikuchio. You can definitely see his influence on modern, stoic main characters. Sadly, it seems with many modern action movies, they forget to make the main characters interesting. This is part of why I love Kurosawa. He knows how to make a character strong and intimidating, yet simultaneously fun and kind of a loving goof. It's a small thing, but I love when the main characters prank each other in his movies. It builds up the camaraderie, it makes their friendship believable, and makes them more fun to watch as characters. The way he works with the two thieves is so entertaining. He also has a watchable yet meaningful arc with the princess. She's kind of a brat, but she's entertaining, and there are moments where she's genuinely commanding. Along with the personality, one of my favorite aspects of this film was the scale. I watched this with my dad, and we both noticed that there are scenes where it clearly wasn't possible for them to shoot on a soundstage with the certain shots they got. There are these fantastic shots where the mountains are shown towering over the characters. There are also some great tracking shots and low-angle shots that I loved. Now, I obviously have to address that this film influenced Star Wars, which, yes, it did, but I want to address something else. Not only do I believe that most action-adventure movies have obtained influence from this movie, and most action-adventure movies from Kurosawa as a whole, but I wish that this film wasn't just known as the one that inspired Star Wars. There's so much more that this film does that makes it stand out in Kurosawa's filmography than calling it the one that inspired Star Wars. It almost feels discrediting in a way. I know that people who say that don't intend that, and it doesn't annoy me that much. I just wish that there were other ways people would describe it. I do have issues with this film that keep it from being a top-tier Kurosawa for me. There are plot conveniences that annoy me, that are kind of spoilery, so I'm gonna avoid them for now. The film also didn't emotionally move me as much as Seven Samurai, or Ran, or Ikiru, or High and Low, or even Rashomon. I still love this movie to death, and it's something I look forward to buying and seeing again. So, another 8 out of 10. This film intrigued me because a buddy of mine described it as a, and I quote, Hitchcockian erotic thriller with uncut cocks. Yeah. I will say that I liked the visuals. It was clearly made from a place of passion, but I'm sorry, this movie fucking drags. It tries to be a steamy romance, a murder mystery, and a deep character study, but I genuinely believe it doesn't succeed at any of them. The acting as a whole was good, I guess. Patrick Dasum easily did the best job, mainly because he's the only character with meaningful development. Frank and Michelle were incredibly boring and shallow. They both fall victim to what is usually my biggest issue with poorly written gay characters, and that is that them being gay is the only thing that makes up their whole personality. They feel so robotic and none of their motivations or goals make sense. I'm sorry, but if I saw someone I was attracted to kill somebody, I wouldn't exactly be pining for an opportunity to have sex with them. I get that it's analyzing queer desperation, but for me personally, I find it incredibly difficult to relate to a character that overlooks murder simply because someone is hot, regardless of sexual orientation. Maybe this movie isn't trying to have you relate to the main character, which I'm willing to admit I possibly missed that, but even then, the movie doesn't really offer anything substantial for me to attach to. Everything else feels very surface level and underdeveloped. There are moments where this reoccurring character is shown jerking off to other characters on the beach. These moments are meant to be comedic, but they are just creepy and tonally dissonant from what was happening in the scene. My least favorite part of the movie was the murder mystery aspect. It just felt like a way to shoehorn conflict into a story that would otherwise contain no conflict at all. The build-up and payoff is unsatisfying, and the main character constantly makes stupid decisions that puts him in harm's way. This was a film that I was, at the very least, interested in for the first 15 minutes, but then it gradually fell off. By the end, I was left unsatisfied and bored. If I weren't committed to the challenge, I probably would have turned it off by the end. This film could have easily been better if they developed the characters more and tweaked the murder mystery element. The concept alone is interesting, and it just felt wasted here. A very light 5 out of 10. I really did try with this one. This was the worst film I saw for the challenge. Me and my dad did have a good time making fun of the movie, but that was all the entertainment I got out of this film. This film fails in two major areas, the first being story. It's incredibly cliched and it doesn't go anywhere unique or interesting. The entire film was incredibly choppy and difficult to follow. The timeline of this movie is needlessly scattered all over the place. It was edited together so poorly. The writing also tries to make you care for a cop who tortures people. Yeah, sure, a movie has made me care for corrupt cops in the past, but their development was so detailed and nuanced. The characters here are so basic and surface level. The second area this film fails in is its own flashy style. This isn't a scenario where the style can act as the substance. Its style was way too intrusive and headache-inducing. I remember the first 15 minutes making me legitimately angry due to how incomprehensibly stupid the style was. I feel like I can sort of remember a decent shot here and there, or one or two well-acted moments, but I genuinely can't remember specifics. I have completely forgotten about this movie. If it weren't for this challenge or me writing a review on Letterboxd right after the film, I would have forgotten to talk about it. The one thing I do remember is that while watching, me and my dad decided to invent a game called Bullshit Bingo. Basically, you take every out-of-place and stupid moment and pretend it's 100% serious in context of the movie. I remember a fight scene where a cop and a criminal were fighting, and then I'm not kidding, I swear to God, I'm not making this up, they started waltzing for no reason. I shit you not, there was a blues track and everything. I feel like if the movie leaned more out of that outright ridiculous style, I'd probably like it more, but that's literally the only moment that sticks out in my memory. It was an over-stylized, annoying, flashy cop drama that tried to be wacky and weird, but it also took itself pretty seriously. Thank God Memories of Murder came out 4 years later and blew this out of the water. A big, fat 4 for this movie. A series first. Ingmar Bergman makes a film that tackles religious faith and the struggles that come with it. And in other news, my videos are not worth the ridiculous amount of time people wait to see them. We can all make obvious statements. All seriousness though, one thing I really like about this movie is that it doesn't take a stance on being anti or pro-religion. Bergman presents the pros with the cons and leaves the big final decision up to the audience, something religious films should do more often instead of just saying religion good or religion bad. Out of all the Bergman films I've seen, this seems to be the coldest. The black and white cinematography in combination with the environment truly gives off a vibe that is actively cold. I love how palpable this film's atmosphere is in that regard. The emotional coldness of the characters also blends perfectly with the visuals. The profound lack of a score helps with this too. The acting is all great in how held back they feel. Every actor is perfect for the emotional distance they bring to their roles, almost as if they're intentionally holding their emotions back out of fear, which only adds to the themes of the movie. The multiple monologues are incredibly intelligent and really got me to think about their topics from different angles I haven't even considered. There are also great moments of subtle acting through facial expressions. It makes me excited to rewatch this in the future because I'm pretty positive I missed some things on my first go-around. Gunnar Bjornstrand was fantastic in this role, and overall, I'd say I liked his performance here than his performance in The Seventh Seal. That's mainly attributed to the development. Given that he's the main character in this, he's given more time to shine, and I hope there are more roles like this that he did because he killed it here. He's a character that you're really not supposed to like, quote-unquote, but his doubt in himself and his faith is communicated incredibly well and makes him more human. It honestly reminded me a lot of The Last Temptation of Christ, directed by Martin Scorsese. His section with the fisherman, played by Max von Sydow, was probably my favorite part of the film. Watching this scene in contrast with their dynamic in Seventh Seal only heightened my appreciation for them as actors. Ingrid Thulin was also fantastic, and she was an easy character to sympathize with. There is one thing about this film that didn't sit perfectly with me, and that is that I find the first 15 minutes to be much slower than the rest of the film. Luckily, it picked up quickly after that, but the first 15 minutes did feel slow in comparison to the rest of the film. In the end, this was a great movie. I think I like the other Bergmans I've seen more than this, but that's already some tough competition given the other two that I've seen. Much like Bergman's other films, it felt like a true search for meaning in a meaningless world. Solid 8. Again. It's about time I checked out one of Agnes Varda's films that people call a classic. I was gonna watch Vagabond, but I chose this after a glowing recommendation from my buddy Finkel. As for Varda as a whole, I can't say I know very much. I remember enjoying Faces Places and Varda by Agnes, but I can't say I was blown away by either of them. I do want to rewatch Faces Places someday though. I did see Black Panthers, however. That was a great short film. This film didn't blow me away, but it certainly got me more on board with her as a director, and it's clear she was incredibly talented. The best aspect to this film was easily the music. The clarinet pieces stick out to me especially because I played the clarinet. And they also stick out to me because the pieces played sometimes felt satisfyingly chaotic. I also love the colors, the film felt incredibly vibrant, and the set design was unique. I also love that there were quite literally colorful scene transitions. There was incredibly smooth camera work with some good runners. There's one scene at a party that sticks out to me specifically. During this scene, patrons keep switching dance partners, and the way it was presented felt so creative, helped by the fact that it was one big long take. The visuals of this film were truly great, and they helped me get through the first 25 minutes. Not that the first 25 minutes were bad or anything, it's just that it didn't do the best job hooking me onto the story or characters. Once the actual plot was introduced, the film got so much better. It just made the first 25 minutes feel uninvesting by comparison. I also feel a bit confused about the film's stance on the husband character. Maybe I'm just a paranoid idiot, I'm willing to admit that's probably the case here, but the film sometimes feels like it's trying to make you side with him towards the end, and trust me, this is not a character you want to side with. I didn't dock points or anything, it just felt weird to me. All things considered though, this film is pretty solid. The camera work, the music, the acting, the colors, it's all pretty great. It may not be an amazing film to me, but I recommend it and I'll probably see it again. It definitely made me more interested in exploring more of Varda's filmography. 7 out of 10. After Pather Panchali and Appadagito, this is an excellent way to end the Apu Trilogy. Out of the 3 entries, this one seems to be the most about acceptance, loss, and connection. All of the themes are explored thoroughly, and it is more than worth it to get to the end. Apu feels the most fleshed out in this film, which isn't surprising given that he has 2 other movies developing him. But in this film specifically, he goes through a lot, and seeing a running theme with his struggles really makes you feel for him. Sumitra Chatterjee did an excellent job playing the character, and he also felt consistent in behavior with the other actors in the past. That's a really difficult thing to nail, and this trilogy does it. Apu is incredibly relatable in all 3 films, and seeing him have a clear character instead of just being an audience stand-in really makes him stick out. Another thing that's consistent about this trilogy is Satyajit Ray's direction. The visual style is truly defined throughout the trilogy, the cinematography improves pretty significantly with each film, and this film is the peak. There are excellent tracking shots and other shots that are just beautifully framed. The shots of the Indian countryside are incredibly atmospheric, which is also helped by the great sound design. Speaking of consistency and atmosphere, I want to give due credit to Ravi Shankar for creating an excellent score for each of these movies. Each track is well constructed, and there isn't a single track that stands out as weaker than the others. It makes me so happy that he went on to have a very productive career because he proved to be quite talented in this trilogy. My only issues with this feel kind of minor. There are some obviously dubbed moments, and those moments where Apu played the flute looked fake as shit. These are really the only issues I can come up with at the top of my head. This entire trilogy, watching Apu grow in front of my eyes, was such a special experience. Even from the first film, it's clear that Satyajit Ray had a clear artistic vision, and it's a vision I really connected with. Each film feels like a realistic step in Apu's story, and they all complement each other very well. I'm so glad I bought the trilogy on Criterion Blu-ray, and I would really love to explore Ray's filmography in the future. I already have The Big City, Devi, and The Hero on my watch list. This too gets an 8 out of 10. This is yet another Akira Kurosawa film that just hit for me. This film definitely doesn't feel all that different from some of his others in terms of themes, but it seems that camaraderie takes the center stage here. This is his only Russian film, which he wanted to make for 25 years, so the passion found here is undeniable. Visually, this film is unsurprisingly excellent. There is a healthy variety of beautiful landscape shots, particularly of the sunset and sunrise. I truly love the visuals of his black and white movies, but the way Kurosawa uses color is fucking breathtaking. Ron is another example of color being used to great effect in one of his other films. My favorite aspect of this film is probably the character interactions. Given that camaraderie is the strongest theme of this film, there would have to be two main characters with a well-developed connection. These two are so watchable and endearing. There's also an interesting development with the hunter's obsession with the wilderness that I liked. It made the final 30 minutes incredibly effective. There are parts that genuinely reminded me of the character richness found in Seven Samurai. It was also really surprising to learn that this film was based on a Russian soldier's experiences in the taiga. Now from the sounds of it, I found another top-tier Kurosawa film, right? Well, no, not exactly. My biggest issue with this film is something that I can't really blame the movie for, but I found no less distracting. I watched this film on the Criterion Channel, and there was some weird unsteadiness to a lot of the shots. It honestly looked as if the restoration of the film was incomplete. I wonder what this film looks like fully restored, because that was really distracting. I also found the first half of the film to not be as well paced as the second half. Overall, I wouldn't consider this film as great as the other films I've seen from Kurosawa, but that in no way makes it less special. He is my favorite director after all, so even if I don't love this as much as his other films, I still love it nonetheless. It's not as great as Seven Samurai, High and Low, and Ikiru especially, but I'd still consider this to be a special gem in a career full of special gems. I can definitely see this film growing on me over time, but only time will tell. I would definitely love to see this film get more recognition from Kurosawa fans. Light, maybe solid 8. As excited as I was for this one, it was truly difficult to get through. I can't say I was bored as much as I was annoyed. Robert Bresson is a director who, on paper, I should really like, but both of the films I've seen from him have not been captivating in any way for me. I will say I did enjoy this more than L'Argent, but that's only by a small margin. The biggest thing that attracted me to this film was easily the story. So before you get pissy, know that I went into this film wanting to love it, but I still came out disappointed. The biggest issue is the execution, and the biggest drag to that is the incredibly overbearing narration. The main character spends most of his runtime quite literally explaining what's happening on screen. This made the preparation of the escape feel so dry and flavorless, but he just explains what he's doing, which is already being shown to us on screen. Narration works when it's helping you gain insight into how a character thinks or perceives events, or to explain backstory a la Lord of the Rings. But when you're using it to explain what's already being shown, it gets infuriating really quickly. This film does have a sense of claustrophobia that I really liked, plus the sets and costumes were convincing. There was also some great sound design. Atmospherically, this film is pretty great overall. That is, until the repetitive and rather unimpressive music comes into play. I didn't hate it, it just felt dull. I also didn't get a lot out of the characters. There was a brief dynamic between the main character and an unseen character that was great, but like I said, it was brief. Emotionally, this film felt pointlessly cold. I would definitely like this a lot less if it weren't for the ending escape sequence, which was pretty fantastic, to give it credit. It was incredibly intense and very atmospheric. I absolutely loved the train whistle in the background. It also got beefed up by the visuals, maybe because it wasn't so closed in. This escape sequence was awesome, and it's a shame that the previous 80 minutes did not captivate me like the escape did. I genuinely wanted to love this, and I really did my best, but Bresson's emotionally cold style does not offer enough to keep me interested. I'm still gonna check out Alcazar, Balthazar, and Pickpocket and Mouchette someday, but because apparently those movies are great as well. So, who knows, maybe I'll like those a lot more. But if those don't do it for me, then I'm pretty sure that Bresson just isn't gonna click. That would be 5. If I can't get into a director's films after 5 movies, then I think it would be time to give him up. So for this movie, it was a 100-minute film that I spent 80 minutes of it being pissed off. From the sounds of it, I would give this a 5, but the stuff that did worked more than well enough for me to at least give it a 6. This is definitely the most accessible film David Lynch has made. I loved Blue Velvet and Eraserhead, but I can't exactly confidently show those to my casual movie-going friends and expect them to enjoy them. Elephant Man, however, is something that I can see most people liking. Even though this film isn't perfect, I'd still consider it pretty well done. The film's cinematography and sound design is pretty fantastic overall. I found it to be very atmospheric, especially during the scenes taking place outside. The costumes and sets are great. The makeup on the main character was honestly incredible. This film has so much detail that it really helped the atmosphere stand out. I really wish the acting had me as captivated as the atmosphere, because aside from Hopkins and Hurt, a lot of the extras felt pretty hokey and their accents felt like something you'd hear at a stage production. The story itself is pretty engaging and I never felt bored. Being Lynch's most accessible film, it does somewhat come at the expense of the tone. There are more than a few scenes that felt pretty cheesy. The film also felt 20 or so minutes too long. There was also a huge historical inaccuracy that absolutely made no sense and made the film feel much more cliched. I really don't have a ton to say about this because even though I enjoyed it, it's most likely my least favorite David Lynch film, I guess. Feature length, at least. I was entertained, but it probably won't leave a lasting impression. My rating may lower in the future, but for now, I'll give this one a light 7. Martial arts movies are definitely my thing. I absolutely love films like Police Story and The Raid Duology. I even ended up watching The Way of the Dragon at some point in my life with my dad, and I remember enjoying that. Now that I'm much older and more familiar with the way these martial arts films are put together, I can certainly say I respect the hell out of this film. I will be the first to admit that it is quite flawed. Obviously, Bruce Lee is the main grab of the film. He's very entertaining to watch, and some of the moves he pulls off are fantastic. The choreography was definitely a mixed bag for me. I thoroughly enjoyed the fights involving Lee, but any fight without him felt a lot sloppier and cheaper by comparison. The fight between Han and Williams was particularly rough. I don't have any complaints as to how the fights were shot. There were a couple of POV shots that helped with the variety. Being a martial arts film, the story is definitely in service of that. It's dumb, it's playful, and Bruce Lee is basically invincible. It's a film that definitely inspired Police Story, and I even noticed a couple of moments that Black Dynamite would later pay homage to. This does not absolve the film from its messiness, though. The pacing was very clunky, and a lot of the performances sucked. Some entertainingly so, but still sucked. The dubbing stuck out like a sore thumb, and this led to some hilarious moments. I do not believe the film justified its hour and 40-minute runtime. It could have easily been an hour and 25 and not skipped a beat. The flashbacks are the biggest offenders in eating a chunk of the pacing. Despite this mess of a structure, there was still a lot of passion coming from either Bruce Lee or the efforts behind the camera. And honestly, if it weren't for the final 25 minutes, I'd probably like this film a little bit less. The sheer craziness of the finale was both entertaining and fitting in this simple puzzle. The scene with the mirrors was actually pretty creative, and I loved the villain's claw hand rope dart thingy. I did enjoy myself for most of the runtime, and while I do have my large gripes with the structure and some of the polish, I will say that what the film had to nail, it did nail. But when movies like Police Story and The Raid Duology have much better structures and polish, I can't see myself revisiting this anytime soon in the future. I do see myself exploring Criterion's Bruce Lee box set, though. I think a 6 is fair. My first thoughts after watching this film were, ending the challenge on this film is oddly fitting. It's a simple and relaxing film that Roger Ebert called devoid of cliches, which I honestly agree with. This film feels less like a narrative film and more like a debate piece. I didn't get as much out of the filmmaking as I got out of the well-spoken and well-written characters. Andre Gregory and Wallace Shawn essentially played themselves, and they were both great. The topics they discuss also don't feel dated. They discuss topics like perception, art, politics, human emotions, societal expectations, and others that I don't want to spoil. What I appreciated in the cinematography was how some shots held on a character for a long time while they flawlessly delivered passionate monologues. It was a great example of the writing, performances, and filmmaking working together in harmony. It all felt natural and the script never felt cheap. I do have nitpicks with bits of the craft mainly lying in the audio. It really bugs me when scenes take place in a restaurant or any crowded place and the background audio doesn't properly reflect that. There were just periods of this film where it felt oddly quiet. I also felt as if the runtime could have been cut down just a bit. At the end I just felt exhausted, and not in the way where it felt purposeful or intriguing. It could have lost a good 10 minutes and felt a lot more airtight. Despite my irks, I still thought the film was pretty good. And even though I don't have a lot to say about it, I honestly don't feel the need to go on and on. This film was simple and it didn't overstuff itself narratively, so I'll keep this brief. I was 100% immersed, but who knows? That may change. I'll have to see it again to come up with a more solid rating, but I'll give this a 7 for now. And that's the end. That's it. That's the end of the video. I'm glad to be done with, sorry, I don't have my camera balanced on anything. I'm just holding it with my hand, but, I'm glad to be done with that. Jesus, it's, like, shaking a lot. Fuck. Much better. Okay, so, I guess my announcement based on future content, or what might be future stuff, a ranked video. I think I'm gonna do a ranked video. I haven't done one since the Kubrick one a long time ago, and I'm just gonna say this now. That video is way outdated. I have changed my thoughts on that ranking entirely. It is no longer my favorite video that I've made because it's no longer accurate. So someday I'll make a re-rank video for Kubrick, but that's not my next video. I'm not going to reveal my next video yet idea just because I just don't know if it's going to pan out because I never know how this shit's going to pan out. So, yeah. Also, I was gone for a while because shit hit the fan in 2022 and I had stuff to do. I had to get I had a bunch of like family obligations. A lot of it's kind of difficult to go into detail. A lot of it's very personal. We had like my sister had a scare with something. I lost a family member. It's like a lot of shit happened. So, you know, I just wasn't motivated, and you can probably hear it in my voice. My voice definitely sounds a lot different than it does in other videos. It sounds different, I know. I don't know what else to say other than it's rough. It is what it is, man. So, yeah, this, I was originally going to do a whole ranking of all the movies that I saw, but fuck, man, that's 52 movies. I don't want to do that right now. I really don't want to do that right now. So I'm just going to leave it at, I ranked all the movies, and I put them on my Letterboxd page, so if you go to my Letterboxd page, which is linked down below, you can probably find the ranking in my list section somewhere. You'll find it somewhere, so yeah, and if you go there, you'll see that I created another Criterion challenge for 2023. I didn't do the one for 2022. I made one for 2022, but I didn't end up doing it because I just didn't have the drive to do so. But for some reason, I feel an odd drive to do 2023. I do not know if I'll be making videos on them based on, you know, how this shit went. So don't expect me to make another huge, sorry, spit there, blah. Don't expect me to make a huge thing. Again, I might do it, I might not. And if I do, I might actually try and figure out a way to condense it into more videos while also not talking about a ton of movies in each, because part of these videos that was so tiring was just how many movies there were to talk about. 13 each. That's a lot. Like, these videos take a long time to make. And plus, I didn't show my face during a lot of it, because that stuff is hard to edit. I don't like showing my face in videos. Do I really have to? Do I have to? I only do this to feel more personal. If you really got a problem, like, get some bitches, please. There's better things than my face out there. Trust me. But yeah, my next video, likely gonna be a ranked video for a director who I really love. And, after that, I don't know. Be sure to follow my Letterboxd if you want to keep up with the shit that I watch, because I'm active there every day, even when I'm busy. I'm always logging shit, making shit, doing shit on there. Like, I'm always doing shit there. So if you want to keep up with what I do without keeping up with my YouTube channel completely, because that's definitely not reliable, yeah, check the Letterboxd account. And also follow the second, I can't call it a podcast at this point because we're not consistent at all. We also fell into this point where we're just, actually this was more because of like just school shit. Now that we're moving into a new year, I think we'll have a bit more time, especially because a lot of us work a lot of the time. So follow the Kistopia YouTube channel if you want to see more of the stuff that I do. We talk about a lot of movies on there, and they're more long-form episodes with spoilers. So every episode we talk about a movie, that movie is spoiled to shit. So, don't watch the episode on The Thing if you haven't seen The Thing, because we go deep into spoiler territory on that one. This is going on for way too long. I've been talking for 4 minutes. Yeah, so sum up, follow my shit if you want to. I'll link it down in the description below. Yeah, ranked video might be the next video. I don't know. I'm not telling you when I'm going to make it. I'm not telling you when I'm going to release it, because I do not fucking know. I think that's it. I'm just glad to be done with this. This feels good. It feels good to make another video again. I actually feel, good about this. So, here's hoping that I continue this streak. And, also, you know what? I'm going to give a brief shout out to a couple people. First, I'm going to shout out to my dad. I'm so happy he participated in this with me. It was genuinely a lot of fun watching a lot of these movies with him. So if you're watching this, Dad, I know I could just literally say it to you in person, but if I already said it to you in person, you're going to hear it again. Thank you for doing this with me. This was a lot of fun, and I would love to do it again for 2023. I also want to shout out my beautiful, wonderful girlfriend, Nikki, who watched some of these movies with me. I love her very dearly. Next, I'm going to shout out a couple of homies, some of my homies who I talked to earlier tonight. I'm going to shout out Bill, mainly, for just sticking up with me and just staying up for a while, just talking about movies and motivating me to get back into this. It really does help. I'm glad you can relate to a lot of the struggles of this homie. Also, shout out to Carlos for that, too, on the Misfit Pond. Follow his channel. I'll link it. Shout out to Blair and Souffle for listening to my fucking ramblings, and Mitchie by just for being there. I'm trying to make a comeback to this shit, so yeah, I'm just shouting out those who inspire me to keep going for that. Perry, Ryan, Charlotte. I can't do shout outs like this, like freeform, because then I'll forget people. Yeah, Mike. Gotta shout out my boy Mike. I hope you're doing okay, my homie. And yeah, I think that Pain Raven and Kaylin. There we go. I think that's everyone. God damn it. I think that's everyone. I really don't know. I'm very, it's fucking, what? It's fucking 4, let me check. Yeah, oh my god, it's 4:30 in the morning. Oh my god, I'm just so tired. Storm's the last one. Storm. Most of just the people on the Misfit Pond Discord chat. Those people. You know who you are. I also got to shout out all the homies chilling and vibing on Kistopia. They're all some of my best friends ever. Love you all very dearly. Thank you for sticking by me. Thank you for being patient. And to those who don't know me personally, thank you for enjoying my stuff. Even if you didn't like this video, I got the view now. Haha, I win. And if you take my opinion seriously enough to be mad at me for some of my takes, A, get some bitches, and B, thank you. Thank you for taking me seriously. Even I don't take myself seriously all the time. So, thank you. And to those who watch and take me seriously and actually like me, thank you. I appreciate your viewership. I really do. Even if I take forever to make shit. I'm just fucking rambling. Thank you for watching. Bye. Have a great night. Fucking shit. Jesus Christ. I don't know how to end. Bye. Thank you. Have a great night. Or morning or after. Fuck off. God.